Welcome back. I've had a request from somebody to look at the causes of leaks around the base gaskets. And on this particular type of engine, you really shouldn't be having any kind of leaks around the base gasket. Obviously, you need to make sure that the surface is good and that you've got a good gasket. But one of the things he did say was that these O-rings that go around the base of the liners were causing him problems because he couldn't get them on and they kept bubbling up. And it made me think about what the purpose of these O-rings are, obviously to seal around the liner section. But one of the issues we've got is the way you put these things on, because they're not the right size. Well, they are the right size, but you have to stretch them over. So if you stretch them over and you force them in and you push them around like that, you will get a bubble. And if you get a bubble, sometimes that will then prevent you from getting the base gasket to seat properly. And also what you might do is you might end up cutting it. So what I was going to do is just try and show you how I put these things on. It's very, very basic, but it's understanding that when you're trying to stretch an O-ring over a piece like this, you need to stretch it evenly, so you can't just pull it over. So what I do is I put it over two sides like that, and then you put one side, the other side over, and you pull those two parts like that. So you know that this half is equal to that half, and you do the same on that side. And you can see then it goes down and it rolls over. So each time you get it roll over, it rolls over to the next section. Now when you get it to the final part, you need to be able to get it to roll over and sit in the seat. So what you want to do is you want to put some light oil around here or some WD-40. So I'm just going to put some WD-40 around the outside of it to try and get it to roll down as far as it can go. See, sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. And then the next part is, I think, something that people will miss out or will skimp on. So what you want to do is you want to push it down into the groove at 90 degrees. Now, the key thing here is not to push it around like that, because all you do is you create a bump. So once you've done that, I tend to do it at what I call hour times. So that's 12 o'clock, I'll do it at 1 o'clock, and I'll do it at 2 o'clock, I'll do it at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 is already done, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now you can see there's already bumps there, but what it does is it stops the O-ring from moving. So then you just catch it in between each of the hour points and you push it down. At no point do you go like that, because as soon as you do that, you're going to stretch the O-ring in a radial motion, which will mean that you'll then move it around the groove, and all that will happen is you'll end up with a bubble somewhere. And you don't want a bubble, because a bubble will stick up and stop the gasket from seating properly. And there we have it. Now that wasn't particularly difficult, but what you've now got is you've got an O-ring that has seated in the groove equally all the way around the liner. There's no stress in the O-ring. It'll stay there and it will not prevent the base gasket from popping up. So you'll see there's some little bits there. Make it sit down nicely, I'll be happy. And there we go. So therefore my base gasket will now sit quite happily on that and will not be affected by any of these O-rings. Obviously I've done the other three there. The next thing I wanted to go into was the pistons. I've gone and bought some new piston kits. I don't know if you can see that there. A nice new 750 standard size piston kits. We've gone and I've checked all the bores to make sure I've got the right size. Okay, you wouldn't want to buy the wrong size of piston. There we go now. Now what I've done is on the top of the piston you'll see there's an arrow, and that arrow's got to face forward because this is the exhaust groove, exhaust valve groove, and that's the intake valve groove. So that must always be pointing forward when you install it. You don't want to be putting it that way, it's the wrong way around. The next thing I want to do is check the size of the rings in the bore. I know that I've measured this, I've checked it, but you can never check too many times. So we've got, in the packet, I've got a variety of different rings here. I've got two very thin ones, I've got a wiggly one, I've got a thick black one, and I've got a thinner, well, it's the same thickness actually, but it's got the shiny one, and on that it's got an R on the top of it, and that means that's the top of the ring, and that's the top ring. So these I'm going to put away just now. These ones here are the oil scraper ring, which will go in the bottom groove, all three of those. This is the middle ring, which will go in the center groove of the piston, and this is the top ring. But what I want to do is I want to check to see that the rings will fit into the bore. So what I do is I'll hold it like that, and I put it into the bore. Now you flip it over. You probably won't be able to see this, but there is a gap. The ring is now closed and that gap is shrunk. And what I will then do is I will then check to see what the remaining gap is with this set of feeler gauges. There's a 10 will go in there. 15. Let's see if I can get a 20. Only just, okay, so I can get a 20. So that's a 0.2 of a millimeter gap in that ring. That's the gap there that I was measuring. All well and good, so I'm happy with that. So I know that these rings will fit in that bore with that piston and will give me a nice good seal. So the way that I put these together, I'll just quickly cover this. So the oil scraper ring, which have now kindly all got themselves all mixed up. First thing to do is to put this one on. I'll put this one on from the bottom. The reason you put this one on is because it's the hardest to get in. To make sure it's in there. It doesn't like going in if you've got these other rings in place. I tend to put these on from the bottom. This one on from the bottom. And the next one I put on from the top. And that will go in the bottom of the groove there. I'll then put the other one on, making sure that I've got the gap in the ring on the other side. You don't want the gaps to be mixed up. I tend to put these in the same order as the arrows and the valves. And I'll explain why in a minute. There we go. So that's the oil scraper ring in. And now what I've done, so I know that I've got a gap in the ring there and a gap in the ring there. So the next one that I'm going to put in, I'm going to put like this. So this is going to be the second ring. There she goes. So I know that the bottom rings, I've got a gap there and a gap there. The second ring, I've got a gap there. So I'm then going to put the top ring with the gap here, and I need to make sure that I have the R facing upwards. And there we are. So that is the piston ring set all put together. And the reason the gaps are offset is that it makes sure that if there's going to be any leak down through the rings, the leak has to go down here. It's going to go all the way the ring, around that ring, down that one, all the way over here, down this one, and then all the way up the other side. So it makes it harder for any gases to escape past the piston. So what I then do is I put in one of the circlips. I'll put one of the circlips in here. I'll then use some assembly lube to put the gudgeon pin in, but to get the gudgeon pin in, I'll actually give it a bit of a heat just to warm it up a little bit to get the gudgeon pin in. And then I'll put it onto the engine. So I'll just show you the engine at the moment to try and explain what we're doing. And on here you'll notice all the studs have been taken out. So I've taken these out because it just makes it so much easier, and also I like to make sure that the studs have been put in properly with proper Loctite. So they'll be going in last, because obviously with the studs out the way it makes it a lot easier to get the pistons in. I put the two pistons in, the two central pistons in first, and I make sure that when I put them in, that the gudgeon pin circlip is on the inside. And the reason I do that is because on the inside it means I can get easily to this bit here. So when I put this piston in, like this, I'm going to make sure that the gudgeon pin goes in from this side, and that there's a circlip on the other side. So when I actually have to put the last clip on, I put it in here, which is dead easy to get to. If I make a mess of it, if I do it the other way, then what happens is I'm trying to get the gudgeon pin in from this side, and I've got this piston in the way. So you just have to think and plan ahead as to which way you want to put the things together. As I say, give it a little bit of a heat just to make sure that it'll accept the pin. Lots and lots of the assembly lube, and I'll also put the assembly lube inside here and in through this this oil hole, just to make sure I've got plenty of lubrication before the engine starts, and before the oil's had a chance to go around. At least it's got some lubrication. That's where we are at the moment, and soon I'll have 4 pistons fully installed.